This is the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show with Joel Luna and Sam Cinta, bringing you this week's latest on the gridiron from around the bend.
Week 4 now for us here at the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show. Sam Cinta here alongside Joel Luna, getting ready to recap all of the action on the gridiron from around the bend. Already a month through this high school football season. Some more good action, highlighted with some big matchups, some big state-ranked games. District play started in District 9 5A2 for us as well. A lot to get into here, but certainly the highlight of this with Marshall and Randle, another big win for the Lions. Man, what a way to open up district play for the reigning state champs.
The highlight is how long that introduction with the name of the show is. That's a long title for a show. I mean, you need about 3 or 4 pauses in between each. So anyway, but yeah, getting back to, the action of the week. Yeah, Randle handling Marshall, but Marshall was down a quarterback. But still, the way they went at him, the way they got him, I mean, it wasn't a game. And like you heard it in the press box, it's your game going on at that time. It really didn't turn into much. But this will be the week. This will be an answering week coming up. So Randle did what they needed to do. Now they're off and getting ready for this one.
Not only Randle picking up big wins this week, of course that one matters a little bit more than the other ones, but that being a district game, Needville with a good win in overtime. George Ranch got right with a win over Bryan. A cool night there Saturday at Trailer, and it's a game that you had a little bit of a drive to get to, and your full shirt Burleson Centennial up at Temple.
Remember when we got lost coming back from Waco?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that.
I did some of that driving heading up to Temple, but during the day it's cool because you can see everything. At night when you're coming back, you don't know the roads, you've never seen them before. It is a little tricky, and those are some curves on some of those county roads, man. That's kind of crazy, but that was fun, though.
For those of you listeners that aren't privy maybe to that story, after Randle's state semifinal game against Bernie last December up at Waco, they played at McLean Stadium at Baylor, Joel and I went to Whataburger to write up our story, send it in to the office before our what should have been a 3-hour drive back home.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, one wrong turn and a hard-to-read GPS later resulted in us. Well, we got to Brenham, I think, by 3:30 that morning before getting back here. So that was a long night that we kind of talk about a lot. Is kind of the roads, twists and turns that maybe you guys don't get to see so much in terms of the coverage that we bring you. But that's all the kind of stuff that we have to go through to get these game stories.
But that was about 30 to 40 miles of nothing but back roads. And the GPS just kept saying, go straight. And we kept going straight, seeing different kinds of areas of back roads that I don't know anybody's seen before. But we did.
I was certain we were going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacred that night. And just fortunately, it's just a funny story as opposed to the intro to a horror movie, right?
Yeah, which we made a couple of stops.
Yeah,
and just doing what we're doing out there, and at that time of the morning, it sounds kind of crazy sometimes. So, I don't know, it's wild. So
without too much more ado, let's get into all of the action here. Starting, of course, with the Lions and the Buffs.
Well, the start of district play for the Randle Lions once again was a good one. So making a statement right away in District 9 5A Division II against Fort Bend Marshall at their place was an eye-opener to many on Thursday night. Really because the Randle Lions just decimated the Buffaloes 51-6. It was quite impressive from both sides of the ball the way Randle worked it throughout the game. I mean, they just came out and did their thing. They played the way that they play, and it turned out that way. The impressiveness of it was the defense. The defense really riled in on the Marshall Buffaloes from the start. They just wouldn't give them any breathing room without any hesitation. So the Mansters, as a la Randy White from the 1970s, these guys were impressive. And even Coach Randle at the end of the game mentioned them right away because they were. So they are a monster of their own that they will approach teams in their way and the way that they want to do things, and they take matters into their own hands. Now, junior Landon Williams-Callis is such a powerful back, which not surprising to many with more than 60 offers standing by Division I programs, that he almost put together a back-to-back 300-yard game, if not for a holding call that kept him away from that. Plus, when senior quarterback Tyler Skrabanak, when he throws the ball at his receivers and is proficient with his passes, the Lions are so much lethal on offense. Skrabanak threw for 199 against Marshall with a couple of scores. And Williams-Callis, he did what he normally does. He ran for 240 with 4 touchdowns. And of course, the one that kind of hurt him a little bit was the 80-yarder to the left side, down the sideline, all the way into the end zone. There was a holding penalty on that, and things like that happen at times. Now, this was almost a repeat of last year's 45-7 win against Marshall, and they now hold a 3-0 series lead against those Buffaloes. In both games, this year and last year, the Lions led 35-0 at halftime, so it was more or less done by then. Now, A&M commit Caden Johnson, the quarterback for the Marshall Buffaloes, did not play, which was a big thing for them. He hurt his shoulder against Crosby the week before, and backup sophomore Kevin Carmouche, well, he got harassed a lot in a lot of different ways by that Lion defense. They sacked him a few times, but they pressured him a lot, made him run when he wanted to throw, and, it wasn't just a very good night for that young sophomore. And, of course, Coach Randle says that he will be pretty good down the line. Now, he only completed 2 passes during the matchup, and a lot of his throws just didn't get to their intended receivers because of the pressure that he had on them. So they blitzed, they harassed, and they took the game away from the offense for the Buffaloes. So he passed for 13 yards and ran for negative 27 yards. And again, the Lion defense did its thing. Now, there was no way the Lions were looking past the Buffaloes to the showdown against Iowa Colony, which is straight ahead. Yes, the second game of district will pit those two Lions against each other at Traylor Stadium this coming Thursday. It should be number 2 against number 4, against unless if those rankings change on Monday. The Lions' first 3 district games are practically the season for district play as far as they are concerned, because right after this one, they get Texas City, and that'll be another tough game for the big boys who are defending their state championship and want a second one.
Does your water taste bad, smell bad, leave behind soap scum? Looking for something clean, filtered, and chemical-free to change your life? Natural Springs Water Filtration could have the customized water filtration system for you. Shop local, buy local, shop Fort Bend, your local clean water lady here at Natural Springs Water Filtration. Call today, 281-277-3232. Ask for Rose, the clean water lady, and get a free in-home consultation and $500 off your purchase when you call for your in-home water analysis today. Solve your hard water problems. Get bottled quality water at every tap. Spot free glasses and dishes, and have softer and cleaner claws out of the laundry. Clean, fresh, chemical-free drinking quality water from your tap from Natural Springs Water Filtration. Our business is improving your water. Thursday night's homecoming game for the Lamar Consolidated Mustangs did not have a happy ending, although I think the game shows very tangibly how far the Mustangs came from last year to this year. It was a 32-21 win for Santa Fe, but last year, this district matchup, the 9-5A opener, was a 56-6 win for the Indians. So the fact that this was a 2-score game at the end of the day after it was a 50-point blowout a season ago, it's a big improvement for Lamar Consolidated. Of course, the Mustangs led in the fourth quarter. They rallied from down 20-7. They took a 21-20 lead with 8 minutes and some change left, and unfortunately 2 long touchdowns regained the lead for the Indians. The Mustangs had a chance to kind of cut it down to one score. They were down 11 at the Santa Fe 15 at the 2-minute warning, and first-year head coach Chris Lane elects to trot out Eric Pena and the field goal team. It would have been a 32-yard kick and well within Pena's range. Just unfortunately for the Mustangs, for the second time in a game, that kick was blocked. And instead of potentially trimming the lead to 8 with a minute and some change, some timeouts, a chance to kick the onside, get the ball back with some time to go down and get the score and the 2-point conversion you would have needed. Obviously, they're playing for the tie. Santa Fe blocks it. And it was, as I said, the second blocked field goal of the game. Lamar also fumbled the ball inside the 10 at one point in that game. So an 11-point loss where you leave 6 points on the board in blocked field goals and potentially more points with the fumble. It stings because a moral victory is still usually a 0 in the win column. But Lane was encouraged by what he saw. He liked that this was an improvement from last year. He liked that his team had a chance to make a play at the end of the game. And he's proud of where this group has been, turning what were 2 blowout losses a year ago to Fort Bend Kempner and to Santa Fe into games that they led in the fourth quarter.
I told them over there that I was proud of them because I know how hard they played, and it's exactly what you said. A couple of big plays we gave up on defense, turned the ball over a couple times on offense. You don't do those things, it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
And our kids know that. We haven't learned quite yet how to finish ball games. You know, when we're doing what we're supposed to do, we're executing, we're pretty damn good. But when we make those mistakes, you give up a couple big plays, you turn the ball over, you give teams opportunities that they shouldn't have. And that's really all it comes down to. And they know it. And those are things that we're working through. So, and I mentioned that too. Hey, you look at what the score of this game was last year. I said, look, we know we should have won this game. We know we were good enough to win it. We just got to fix us. And that's really what it comes down to. And we will. We're going to get better. We're improving every week. So I'm proud of it. I really am.
And part of what makes Lane so proud about what this Mustang team has done, junior quarterback Edgar Garcia had himself an evening. 276 yards passing, 24 of 32 throwing the rock. He had 71 yards and a score on the ground. He balled out. I was talking with Jim Lacombe and Chris Walter. They work the Galveston News, do great work covering the Houston area from the island. And those two guys, man, could not believe that Garcia was a tight end. The way he looked last night, making good decisions with the ball, he never really put it in danger. It wasn't just balls thrown immediately to first reads. It was second reads and third reads at times. He was making good decisions, run past. He was really effective running the ball up the middle on some quarterback draws. I thought the Mustang offense did a really good job of using its wide receivers to kind of pull guys out of the box and create some room for Garcia. And the other thing I thought was impressive was the receivers for Lamar Consolidated. Big time production across a couple of different guys. Jordan Waddle, 103 yards and a score on 5 touchdowns. Isaiah Cobbins, 9 catches, 73 yards. Cameron Dalliott, 53 yards and a touchdown on 4 catches. Like, he was moving the ball around. Lamar didn't run the ball particularly well. Sophomore back Larry Clinton is probably not going to want to remember this game. I think he had 9 carries for, a net gain of -2 yards in the contest. And Lane said they would have liked to have run the ball better. But the bright side certainly was Garcia and the passing game offensively. And they're going to have to figure out how to make some more of those plays on defense, how to not fumble the ball and get the blocking assignments right on those kicking tries. But certainly from an improvement standpoint, a lot to like about where the Mustangs are after the first district game this year versus what we saw a season ago. Of course, Lamar Consolidated has a big one Friday night at Trailer Stadium next week as they welcome the Terry Rangers for the next installment of the Battle of the Berg. The Mustangs, of course, trying to ring the bell after another Terry win in that series a season ago. And taking a look at some other scores from around the area Thursday night, of course, our scoreboard brought to you by Creekside Christian Fellowship, bringing the unchurched to Christ every week. Located on Highway 36 in Needville. Find out how they can meet your worship needs. Creekside Christian Fellowship, of course. District openers for District 9 5A for us, and wrapping up some non-district play in 6A as we get ready to start the 26A slate, 19-6A, all of that stuff. Next week, Alief Hastings beat Houston Bel Air 47-14. A lot of points for the Bears that are definitely trying to make a push to be a playoff team, of course, in that district with Fulshear, Foster, George Ranch. Over at Fort Bend ISD, Austin wins a pretty fun game over Dulles 33-30, shaking off a big blowout loss to Fulshear last week. A lot of points between the Bulldogs and Vikings in that one. A lot of points. Up north a little bit, Katy takes care of Cinco Ranch. They double up the Cougars 56-28. Morton Ranch and former George Ranch coach Nick Cavallo getting a pretty exciting win 24-17 over Katy Taylor. And in another 9-5A opener, one of three that took place last night, Iowa Colony just beats the brakes off of Baytown Lee 57-0, which sets up, of course, a huge showdown between the 4-0 Pioneers and the 4-0 Lions this coming week in the game that will very likely determine the district race. Crazy that the second game of the district slate will probably be the one that determines who's going to be taking home that championship, but sure looks that way between the Lions and Pioneers. We're starting to get used to these wild games between Needville and El Campo, and Friday night at Ricebird Stadium down 59. Oh boy, that's another example of a great meeting. Of course, last year, the Ricebirds pulled out a thrilling win in overtime. This time around, it was Kobe Campbell and the Needville Blue Jays getting the touchdown and the 2-point conversion on their first drive in overtime to stave off a furious El Campo rally and win their second game of the season 36-35. Man, I'll tell you, Friday night, I'm at Trailer Stadium. I'm taking in Foster Barbers Hill. I know Joel Luna was way up in Temple covering Fulshear and Burlington Centennial, so I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of the other games we had going around. Of course, Terry, Texas City, and Needville, El Campo, and I saw the score at halftime, 28-7 Needville, and I was like, oh, well, hey, the Jays have turned the page from a really, really big win over Columbus. They look like they may be rolling against El Campo here. And I kind of just, in the back of my mind, put that game on the back burner. As I thought, all right, well, they've got it well in hand. Remember checking late in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden it's a tie game, 28-28. And it's kind of hard to believe, but this Needville defense, which has been strong outside of that second game of the year to Livingston, gave up 21 unanswered there in the second half to allow the El Campo Ricebirds to tie the game. It took a little bit of heroics in overtime as well. El Campo get the ball first. They score a touchdown, kick the extra point. They go up 35-28. And all of a sudden, the Jays need a miracle. It's 4th down and 6. And Cameron Hall has to scramble around to avoid some pressure, just heaves a Hail Mary toward the end zone downfield to Ralphie Ortiz. The junior comes down with it at the 1, 1st and goal. And Needville, when they go to those 1st and goal situations, well equipped with the backfield of Cameron Hall and Kobe Campbell. And it was Campbell, the running back, who they turned to, pushing the pile across for the touchdown. And then in a play call that I love to see, they go to the 2-point conversion. Instead of kicking for the tie, They go back to Kobe Campbell, pushes across the line, ball game, Jays win 36-35. We were talking about this a little bit in the office today ahead of recording this, and just kind of talking about what that move, what making that call means and signifies to your team. In the scope of a football game, we like to sit here, and it's a 4-quarter game, but we like to try and whittle it down to a couple plays here and there that matter, break down or break up the game as a whole. But realistically, a football game is decided by more than just 1 or 2 plays. Most of the time. But there come opportunities in a game when you have a chance to literally win the game if you can execute one play. And in that moment where you are scoring the touchdown on the answer drive in overtime, executing on the 2-point conversion means you have won the game right then and there. You are not leaving it up to your defense making a stop or to you scoring again in overtime, right? You are taking matters into your own hands and saying, we're going to go win the game. It's no different, right? That great Sunday night football game to open the season between the Bills and the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson and the Ravens get a 4th and 2 from, I think, the 38-yard line, something like that in Buffalo territory. And yeah, you punt because you're in Bills territory, but Bills only had 1 timeout. Buffalo only had 1 timeout left. You're inside of the 2-minute warning. They convert the first down on that 4th and 2. They probably win that game. Instead, they punt. Buffalo, of course, goes downfield, kicks a field goal as time expires, wins 41-40. That was an opportunity the Ravens had to make a play and win the game. In this moment, Mike Giles and the Blue Jays did not kick the ball. They had a moment to make a play and win the game. And what did they do? They made a play and won the game. A huge win for Needville. Confidence-wise, it would have been a crushing loss, right? You go up, you go into the locker room up 28-7, and then you go home losing that game. A crushing loss. This was not that. They won. They get to feel a little bit better about it. Plenty to fix, of course. You're giving up 3 touchdowns in the second half and a touchdown in overtime. But you feel a lot better fixing some things coming off a win than you do coming off a loss. Of course, the Jays have one more non-district game. They play Sealy this Friday night, 7 o'clock. As a 54-13 win for Sealy last year. The Jays have only beaten Sealy 4 times ever. And the last one was in 2006. So the Jays are playing a very, very good Tiger team. And coming off of 2 good wins against 2 really good ranked teams, they've got maybe their best opportunity to show what they've got ahead of district play, where, of course, you got a couple other big matchups looming with Stafford and Fort Bend Crawford. But again, for the Jays, a big win in overtime, a fun win in overtime, and something that maybe gives this young group plenty of confidence ahead of what figures to be a really, really competitive district.
Well, it was another game for the Fulshear Chargers where it turned into an aerial attack. It was kind of slow in the first half, despite 3 touchdown passes, but it really revved up in the second half, especially when they needed it because Burleson came within a touchdown of them in the third quarter. But the Chargers were prepared as they answered the call with 4 straight scores to put it out of touch. As Coach Hill keeps reiterating, keep having the faith and practicing hard, and all of that rolled into one will turn out just fine. The Chargers have found the niche that makes them tick, but now it is time to paste it together as District 26A begins on the road at Leroy Crump Stadium this Thursday against the A-Leaf Taylor Lions. Game start, 6 p.m. Memories were flowing a bit through Coach Hill's brain as they ventured back in time because he got his 25-year coaching career started right there in Temple at Travis Middle School. Prior to the game, they had a bit of a meet and greet with good friends from the past. As far as the game went, well, senior quarterback Sean Patel has found a groove with his throws and his wide receivers. The run game also has put some thread on the Wildcat turf as well to make it work for Fulsher and Coach Hill. Patel threw for 6 touchdowns a week after throwing for 7 in last week's victory against Fort Bend Austin. Yeah, he's hot, but he is on target as the Seven Lakes transfer is having some fun playing the game. But Hill is head over heels for his signal caller, who's turned out to be quite a find for him and the Chargers. There was also a big win against a Spartan team that when their triple option game worked, it got them some yards, especially in the first half, where 5 different backs penetrated the Fulsher defense. Still, that defense held them down in the second half once they got a look of exactly what the triple option is. In the second half, they only ran for 36 yards on 17 carries. Fulsher threw 7 touchdown passes, but one of them was a trick play, which worked to perfection. And that's what Hill wants to see. Not only because it worked, because Patel saw it and worked and changed the play at the line. Now it is time to get serious and forget about the fun, because the games that really count are here. It would be fun if the Chargers come prepared for a 3rd straight week at Crump Stadium and try to tame those vicious Lions at their own den.
In need of a partner to help you reach your financial goals? Houston Federal Credit Union is your local credit union. With checking accounts, savings accounts, auto loans, mortgage loans, business loans, and credit cards, Houston Federal Credit Union can help you achieve all of your financial dreams. Find out more information at houstonfcu.org to apply online for a loan or membership, and find out more information about how they can help you get where you want to go. Randle, Marshall, of course, and Lamar consolidated Santa Fe. Not the only 2 District 9 5A openers, as the Terry Rangers took on Texas City from Stingery Stadium. Of course, the Stings, the big win in this series last year. They kind of held serve this time around to a 28-3 win over the Rangers. A tough offensive showing for Coach Darnell Jackson and his group. But it was another game where I think if you look at the majority of the game, it was much closer than a 25-point final margin would suggest. It was 7-3 game late in the third quarter. And Dustin Taylor, the fullback for the Stings, broke off a 36-yard touchdown run on 4th and 2. I mean, geez, the Rangers get a stop there, can start moving the ball a little bit. Who knows, right? This is a big Texas City team. They've got really good size, a returning quarterback in Clyde Votaw Jr., a team that a lot of people have picked maybe as the favorite to get that 4th spot in the playoffs in 9-5A2. Of course, behind Randle, behind Iowa Colony, and behind Fort Bend Marshall. So it's an 0-1 start to district play for the Rangers. However, an opportunity to ring the bell again comes this week against Lamar Consolidated in the Battle of the Berg. And an opportunity to move to 1-1 in district play, of course, when every win is going to matter. Seth Mercer led the Rangers 39 yards on 3 touches. Elijah Whittle had 3 catches for 39 yards. They had 16 tackles from Reyes defensively. Slow game for the Rangers on offense. Just 139 total yards, just 6 first downs, and 3 of those came in the fourth quarter with the game pretty well in hand for the Stings. So it's been tough for Terry since the win in week 1. They've now lost 3 games in a row, and the Rangers, of course, will try to right the ship when they go to Traylor Stadium Friday night for, of course, that great rivalry matchup against Lamar Consolidated. Friday night at Guy K. Traylor Memorial Stadium, it was a tough one for the Foster Falcons. It's been tough sledding so far for this Foster offense. 27 points scored total across their first 4 games. If you talk to Coach Shane Hanks, again, eternal optimist, one of the most positive guys you are going to find again, you've got two takes, really, that comes away from this. The first being last year's Foster team that made the playoffs and pretty nearly pulled an upset against Katy Jordan in the by-district round went 0-4 to start play last season. He wants to win games. His staff wants to win games. His players want to win games. You can tell that there's a level of frustration that the level of play is not matching the preparation. But there's also the perspective and the broader context that games don't matter until you get into district play. They matter in terms of what you learn from the experiences, what you pick up, what you find out about your team. But at the end of the day, if you want to make the playoffs, all that matters is being in the top 4 spot in that district. Now, we're going to have to see where the D1, D2 lines ultimately fall. But for the Falcons, the real season starts Saturday afternoon at George Ranch. And that's a good thing. The Foster was outgained 314-60 by the Barbers Hill Eagles in a 43-13 loss. Really a 43-7 game. The Falcons got a touchdown pass at the very, very end of the game to Langston Hogan, 10 yards out on 4th down at the buzzer for that final score. It was a tough evening for Foster. Homecoming king Bubba McDowell, Sean McDowell, recorded a sack to force a punt on the first Barbers Hill drive. Thought, all right, well, the defense might be able to make some plays. Let's see what the offense can do. And that really was one of few highlights. They got a 12-yard touchdown run from Byron Fantroy where he ran through contact, bounced off a would-be tackler, and scored. But the game was 22-0 at that point. And then they got that late score. Now, the bright side, again, we've already talked about how district play starts next week for Foster. But the Fantroy score happened to make it a 22-7 game. They got to stop and got the ball back before halftime. Now, had they scored points of any kind, they would have gotten the ball back at the third period with an opportunity to double dip. Now, it's not ideal, and we can sit here and say, oh, well, if to any game for any team at any point in the season. But football and coaching is really just about making sure your guys are in position for a play. It's up to the players to make a play. So for the coaches to sit there and say, hey, we had the ball with an opportunity to cut the lead and then an opportunity to get the ball back and cut the lead even further, it shows that the wheels are turning for this Falcons team. You know, it might look slow and grindy, but they're starting a little bit to get situationally better. A big one next week at home against George Ranch, but I thought Coach Hanks, again, as optimistic as he is, did a really good job of finding where his positives have been so far in what's been a tough 0-4 start, and realizing as long as his team starts picking the pieces up now and finding ways to win these games now, it'd be pretty easy to forget the month of September.
Yeah, it's non-district. Do we want to be 0-4? Absolutely not. But it doesn't matter if we're 0-4, 4-0, whatever the combination of the records are. It starts next week. It starts next week. So this is where it begins. Six-game stretch, and that's what we got to take care of. And all this, we need to learn from it, but then we got to move on. It's time to move on. So.
What would you say the bright spots have been for you guys so far, in this slate? Has there been anybody that's kind of stepped up or taken on a role that maybe you weren't seeing or something that you wasn't surprised by?
I thought our running backs did a heck of a job. Byron Fantroy, Jordan Williams, and Tate Cloud. I thought they did a heck of a job tonight. Couldn't really get into good of a rhythm second half because we just were, got pinned down field position-wise, had some turnovers, and just 3 and outs. So we didn't get a whole lot of plays to get a rhythm, but they ran the ball really hard when they ran. And I thought the receivers did a good job of getting open and quarterbacks. We're still trying to find who's going to be that guy to get us that district run. So we're still looking, still battling, and defense played hard. It really shocked me that they did run as well as they did run tonight. But we'll watch the film and see what happened. Some guys were not in their gaps or whatever, but I still confident in our defense. We'll get the thing done and get it turned.
And Friday's scoreboard here for Week 4's action is brought to you by Manor Lane Southwest, the Ace Hernandez team with 75 years of experience. They are Fort Bend and Southwest Houston's real estate experts, specializing in seller financing. Call today at 281-762-6757 to find out how they can help you meet your real estate needs. And it was a big and busy day Friday night across the area. We're going to round up some of the other scores that impact our districts, the other areas, Katy ISD, Fort Bend ISD, out in Wharton County, as well as Wallace Brazos. Get all those scores in for you today. A-Leaf Taylor, their district, or non-district finale, I should say, beat Houston Heights 21-20. Fort Bend Bush, a big thumping on Clements 51-7. And then another FBISD action, a really exciting game, a lot of points in the other way. Fort Bend Travis beating the Hurricanes of Hightower 46-40. Up the road in Katy, Jordan beat Maid Creek 36-22. Paytow beat Tompkins 55-44. A lot of points scored this week. Up the road a little bit, Navasota beat Waco 56-21. Sealy, who's getting ready to play the Blue Jays in Meadville next week, they beat Bay City 35-7. Sweeney picked up a 40-14 win against Brazosport, while Fort Bend Crawford thumped Hampshire Fannin 63-21. Port Lavaca Calhoun 32, Stafford 8. Wharton gets a win over Hempstead, Tigers winning 45-9. Woodlands Christian beat Bowling 44-27, while East Bernard picked up a win over Tomball Christian 44-14. Brazos, they just keep winning under first-year head coach Patrick Oliver 65-18 over Schulenburg, while Danbury beat Louise 20-8. Saturday was a cool evening at Guy K. Traylor Memorial Stadium. Now, I say cool not so much temperature-wise as far as what was going on there at the stadium. It was cool walking in. The reporters kind of going through the same pass gate at Traylor every single time, and it's cool to see, campus athletic coordinator Alicia Dutch there kind of serving as greeting George Ranch alums, administrators, coaches, coming back to Traylor for the 10-year reunion for, of course, that 2015 Longhorn State Championship team. Coach Dutch was obviously super excited to see these former Longhorns returning to the stadium. They had the trophy out. Guys were meeting out on the field, of course, with Ricky Tullos and the Bryan Vikings in town. Ricky, of course, the head coach of that 2015 team. Is a perfect opportunity for the program to welcome everyone back. And, while it was a great warm reunion and high fives and hugs and laughter and smiles that were really big, you could just tell how happy those guys were to see Tullos, how happy he was to see those guys, those coaches, their parents even. It was just one of those moments, one of those evenings that's just special. You can tell, this meant a lot to those players to be able to come back and remember this. And for as warm as the reception was, and as happy and as warm and fuzzy as all of that was on the field before the game, the Longhorns were not great hosts to Tullos and his Vikings. Right, 21-11, pretty close on the scoreboard. The win for George Ranch. But they forced 5 Bryan turnovers and held them well under in terms of yards in the contest, right? Like, George Ranch was impressive. They were impressive. They did really exactly what you're hoping for the Longhorns to do in that spot. Good first half for Hayden Drinkard. He couple of scores, couple of them that could have been really long touchdowns that ultimately were called back, but still 11 carries, 128 yards, and 2 scores for Drinkard. Now, worth noting as we come in to district play, and of course that 26A opener against Foster Saturday afternoon at Traylor, Drinkard did not play in the second half. I noticed it in that first drive of the third quarter. I didn't see number 5 out there in the backfield. And that's not particularly unusual right? Like, certainly the running back position, sometimes they just change a pace to start the quarter, and, we'll bring some guys back in. Brandon Jefferson's a good bruising back, seeks out contact, goes through the tackles. He played well in the second half, and he, with a couple other ball carriers for George Ranch, really carried that load. But Drinkard, the entire second half, no jersey on, just kind of walking around on the sideline. Talking to Coach Vaught after the game, he had said, look, he's all right, we're just being careful. And certainly can't blame the GR staff here. Ultimately, it's a non-district game. That doesn't matter for standings. So if you think that you've got a lead, they're up 14-3 going into the break. If you feel comfortable with the way your defense is playing, with the way the rest of the offense has looked, hold them out. Right? Let's bubble wrap him, make sure that he's healthy and ready to go for a rivalry game against the Falcons. And George Ranch played well, man. Realistically, they did. Tony Morrison, 23 of 30, 180 yards and a score. 7 of those balls went to Trevor Bielitz, 68 yards. Nick Perez had 6 catches, 44 yards and a score. Good win. It felt more on the right track for the Horns. They had a difficult 28-14 loss at Turner Stadium in Humble last week to the Wildcats. They just felt flat throughout in that game. This was not that. This was a team that rose to the occasion, got back on track, so to speak. And you talk to Coach Vaught, there were still things to clean up, but he really liked what he saw out of this group. He thought that they competed this time as opposed to last week when maybe they were caught a little off guard. So here's Coach Vaught talking about what his Longhorns did right on the field Saturday night.
Brandon did a really nice job as our second back, and then we even were able to get some carries with our third guy with Yaki, our third back, and it was really good to get all three of those guys some touches and prepare us for next week.
What did you see tonight that was improved from last week that kind of made those things offensively easier?
I think the biggest thing was the fight. Our guys came out and competed, and that's the biggest thing we asked for them, day in and day out, is to compete.
Yeah. And, of course, after the game, I had a chance to catch up with Coach Tullos a little bit, talking to him about the Vikings and their performance. And it was a tough offensive game. They couldn't really get a lot of room in the middle of the field. I thought, the secondary, 4 interceptions, they really still did a good job of stifling the run game. I thought the George Ranch defensive line dominated. It wasn't a lot of pressure in the backfield. There were a ton of tackles for loss, but it wasn't really big runs up the middle. A couple times, Brian got a couple runs to the outside, but really if they were trying to go between the tackles, between the center and guard, George Ranch did a good job pushing that line, pushing that pile, and really restricting a lot of what Brian wanted to do offensively. So it wasn't a great game in that respect, but it was still a night to remember for Coach Tullos. He clearly loved his time at George Ranch. These players mean a lot to him. The coaches mean a lot to him. And afterward, I wanted to get his feel for what it was like to be back at Traylor Stadium and to have all of these guys around and recollect and remember all of the great times, that 16-0 season, state championship, the second state championship in the history of LCISD. He beamed, man. It was really cool to talk with him about this. He really loved the moment, loved the opportunity to come back to Traylor, and wanted to share some of his thoughts with you all. Maybe a trip down memory lane for those of you that remember Tullos' time with the Longhorns. And it's just really cool to hear how grateful that he was to have the experience and the time that he had at George Ranch, and for the continued relationships he's had with the people at George Ranch, as players, as coaches, as administrators. And I just thought that this was just a really cool look at why this evening, Saturday night, was just so much more than the 21-11 win for the Longhorns.
Well, it's unbelievable feeling. I'm so honored and thankful to be able to spend a small part in their life, and it was so great to see them. They're young men now, and I just couldn't be more proud of them. That journey was so special, all the years we were here and the games that we won, and just super proud of that whole family of our coaches and kids. They'll always have a huge place in my heart. This district will, this school will, those kids and this community. I couldn't be more thankful and proud to be their head coach during those years.
Do you have a favorite memory here at Trailer? There's probably a lot of them, but...
Yeah, there's a bunch, man. We've had some great battles with some of our district opponents. It's always a big-time rival anytime you get into some of your district opponents. But, no, we've had a bunch, and it'd take me all night to kind of go through all those. But
sure.
Just know we're definitely proud of all of them, and there was a lot of hard work that was put in to that journey, and that ended up in a state championship.
Physical Therapy Care and Aquatic Rehab of Fort Bend is sponsoring this week's Saturday scoreboard, rounding up was a not quite as busy bit of action on Saturday. Physical Therapy Care and Aquatic Rehab of Fort Bend, providing professional care with a personal touch to help you get back to work, life, and play free from pain, with 2 locations in Richmond and in the Katy Fullshare area. Give them a call at 281-344-8900, or to call the Katy Fullshare office, call 281-347-8900 and find out why they are the Fort Bend Herald Best of Fort Bend County Choice winner 8 years in a row. And of course, just a few games on Saturday. I was looking across the scores across the whole state. I was at Brian George Ranch at Trailer Stadium Saturday evening, and it was a really quiet slate of games on Saturday. Not a lot of teams in action, but those around the area. Houston Lamar beat Alief Elsick 38-7. Of course, the Elsick Rams starting play in District 26A this week. Ridge Point 56 over Elkins 10. Big win for the Panthers, stay unbeaten. And now, I don't know when that Ridge Point team is going to lose, if that Ridge Point team is going to lose, but Rick LeFavors has that group in a really good spot. And one more game for us on Saturday. Brookshire Royal 28, Fort Bend Willow Ridge 26. An exciting win there. And Royal picking up another win with another week to go before the start of district play.
Yeah, let's get to the numbers right here. And we had another good week. 4-3.
Yep.
194 to 169. That was the scoring that went on with all the teams that we have, and they outscored the opponents 194-169, which is something that I like. Now, this is 6A. 6A is going into district. And listen to these records. Fulsher George Ranch, 2-2. Alief Taylor Strake Jesuit, 2-2. Foster Alief Elsick, 0-4. Alief Hastings, 1-3. Who the heck is going to win that district?
It's really funny that you asked that, too, because I had a message from Tony Blaylock, who has Texas high school football, and he asked a similar question. And he was basically saying, I don't have any idea who's going to be the playoff teams. I think the consensus right now is Fulsher and Strike Jesuit at the top 2, as the top 2 teams in that district. And we'll get into this maybe a little bit here as well, but Saturday's game coming up, Foster George Ranch, big game. I don't really think that district openers get much bigger than that. Whoever wins that game is going to have the inside track to a postseason spot in that district the rest of the way.
Yep.
Now, it's not impossible for the loser of that game to still find a way to make it into the playoffs, but you lose a little bit of that margin of error. So this is we said this, with the first couple of games in 5A D2, right? Your 9-5A D2, right, with Randle, Iowa, Collin, and Marshall. How we're going to learn a lot about that district the first couple of weeks to play. We're going to learn a lot about what's going to happen in 26A after this weekend.
Well, Fulsher is going to take on Alief Taylor, who is 2-2. So that's going to be also a very good matchup. And I just kind of like the way Fulsher is playing right now.
Yeah.
With their offense going the way it is, and the defense also coming along and really picking it up. And it's usually the other way around as far as which goes first. But in this case, it's a defense that's behind, because when you have Attila throwing 6 to 7 touchdowns a game, I mean, that's pretty good. But listen, Fulsher is taking on Alief Taylor, and talk about an Iron Man team. Alief Taylor, the following day, is taking on Manor New Tech. So they're playing back-to-back football games on Thursday and Friday. How about that?
Golly, I don't know that you could pay me enough money to do that. Actually, that's probably not true. But I don't think you're going to be paying me a normal amount of money to be playing 2 games. I don't think I could play 2 games to pick up basketball on consecutive days anymore, let alone hitting each other in pads and cleats.
Oh, and by the way, Straight Jesuit, they're going to be on the sideline looking at everything since they have a bye. So they won't get into it till next week. I think, Straight Jesuit will be somewhere in the top. But it just depends how things go with the A-Leaf schools and the Foster and George Ranch schools.
And I think you look at that district, you see Fulshire 2-2, projected to be at the top of it. But look at those 2 losses. Pearland, Ridge Point, 2 top 10 teams in 6A D1. Great programs. I mean, that Ridge Point team has 24 kids on the roster who are either committed or hold NCAA Division I offers in football.
And I'm just saying, Fulshire, you face those 2 teams. I don't know, but the playoffs come around, you could see them again.
And as Stephen Hill said after the Ridge Point game, both coaches in those situations, both the Pearland coaching staff and the Ridge Point coaching staff, came to him after the game and said, boy, I don't want to play you guys in 6 weeks. So let's see where the Chargers look coming into playoff time. But, so far, Stephen Hill has called his shot in terms of getting this passing game going for the Charger offense.
So now we'll be in the district after coming up this week. Everybody will be in. And, of course, things will get more interesting once everybody starts winning or losing and start placing and we start getting on with it.
Of course, I'll kind of give you this segue here. We all know what the big one is next week. I think we've all known what the big one was going to be, this season. When we left NRG Stadium after the regional final for the Randle Lions last season, how excited are you to kind of see what this Iowa Colony-Randle matchup looks like?
Man, I'm going to have one eye on it, even though I won't be there. But Fulshire at Leaf Taylor, as far as the schedule is concerned on Thursday, it'll be a 6 p.m. start at Crump Stadium. Second meeting, last year it was Fulshire 48-19, so I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, as much as I like Fulshire and the way they're playing, I mean, you got to get on the field and show it first. And if they show it, then it's going to be a good game for them. As I mentioned, Iowa Colony and Randle at Traylor Stadium. Get your popcorn ready, guys. Number 2, Randle. Number 4, Iowa Colony. Once again, the rankings came out. They stood the same. And I don't know. I know you don't like that.
I'll do that. I don't understand the reasoning behind putting a team number 1 in the preseason poll. Taking all of the preseason information that we're giving, rosters just coming back, who came in, who looked like what at 7-on-7 or at camps during the year, who got what offers, right? You put all of that work into your preseason rankings. You have a team is preseason number 1 in the state, goes 4-0 in the non-district slate. None of the games are close. The one game against Travis that you might say, oh, okay, that's a little weird. They gave up 29 points. They were in the 50s. And you drop them a spot in the rankings for what? Yeah. What did Randle show you that suggested that isn't, what you thought they were at the beginning of the season? The Lions are, I would argue, better than I thought that they would be in the beginning of the season. I get South Oak Cliff had a big win over North Shore. That North Shore team isn't as good as they were last year. That North Shore team isn't as good as they've been the last few years. Yeah. I said this to you in the office earlier today. If this Randle roster... or if this Randle roster had South Oak Cliff's name on it, having done everything they've done, that's the number 1 team in the state. But because it's Randle, they're number 2 right now. And I think that's crazy.
I didn't even know North Shore was playing any football. What are they playing? They're still playing football?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Nobody's
just
got the North Shore Atascocita game circled like they did last year, right? It just... this is me yelling at a cloud again, but I don't understand the logic. I know we love doing polls, as people that cover the game, and we love talking about where teams are ranked, and we like the maybe inciting a little controversy by putting teams here. So this is a Randle team that beat South Oak Cliff last year, and I know you're not taking that into account necessarily, but they beat South Oak Cliff on the field. They won the state championship. They come in returning a wealth of talent as a preseason number 1 team in the state, and because they didn't hang 70 on Fort Bend Travis, they're not the number 1 team in the state anymore. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Last year's matchup between Randle and Iowa Colony, 30-10 in favor of Randle, but at the half, it was like a 10-point lead, 3-point lead, whatever it was. So they can't do that against Iowa Colony this year.
And I think if we remember back beyond that 20-point game was the closest game that they had until the playoff, until they again played Iowa Colony in the regional final, right? A 21-14 win in overtime at NRG Stadium. I remember the night of the Randle Iowa Colony game last year. It was at Freedom Field in Alvin. You covered that one. You were there. I had covered Foster George Ranch at Traylor Stadium that night. I'm driving home. It was funny. It's right before my wedding. It was actually the last week of football before I got married that following Saturday. My folks were in town from Michigan. They wanted to see a Texas high school football game, so they came to Traylor Stadium while I was in the press box covering Foster George Ranch, and they wanted to see the game. So they came with, and I was driving them back to my house after the game, and you called on the drive back to my house. I pick up on the phone, and you're telling me about a fight on the field during the postgame handshake line between the Pioneers and the Lions. That preceded an overtime game in the regional final. They're in the Elite Eight. They beat them in overtime. You know, there's a lot of emotion there. I would imagine you've got a Pioneer team that is angry and wanting to get some get back on the Lions.
And the reason I told you about that fight is because I was right in the middle of it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm kind of going along with the line, and, you know, just walking with them, and all of a sudden, all you see is fisticuffs. And here I am trying to get away from it. So it's kind of funny. But, yeah, I mean, you know, these teams, they don't like each other, you know, but, you know, they've had some pretty good meetings. But it's funny the way Iowa Colony just came on as a first-year school, and then as a second year, they're in it.
Yeah.
And now they're legitimate.
Very, very closely mirroring what the Lions did, right? A young program took a big step in year 2, had a 1-point playoff loss to Huntsville, and then year 3 broke through in as big a way as you can.
Yep.
You said it, though. These are two teams. There's a lot of respect.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. Randle coaches have been talking about this Iowa Colony matchup all summer, all season long as the big one. Mm-hmm. But you said it. Like I said, these teams do not like each other, even a little bit. And I think this is the most interesting game in the state this weekend. Yep. I think that this has big-time potential for a lot of fireworks, both good and maybe not so good.
Elvin ISD has 4 teams in their district, yeah? You have Iowa Colony, you have Elvin ISD, Shadow Creek, and Manville. If anybody is wondering where all those players are coming from, they're all at Iowa Colony.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yep.
Hey, we got the Battle of the Berg this week.
Great rivalry.
Meeting number 36. Terry leads the series 19-16. Now, this is the 27th consecutive year they're playing, okay? So back in 1994, they stopped all the way to 97. Reason was because Lamar went down to 4A. They were 5A at that point.
Yes.
They went down, and something happened. I don't know who took them out of the kitchen. Just said, we're going to take a break or whatever. But, yeah, they did. And here's another one. Sealy at Needville. These are Friday games, all right? 32 meetings. Sealy is leading the series 4-32. Oof. Wow. Favor. Wow. Last win for Needville was in 2006, 33-18. So, yeah, if Needville wins on Friday, they're going to celebrate.
I went down to Eddie Joseph Stadium last year, or I guess out to Eddie Joseph Stadium in Sealy last year for that game, and it was one of those, I think it was like 14-13 early. Mm-hmm. Punch, looked really fun offensive game. And then all of a sudden, the faucet turned off for the Needville offense, and that became a 44-13 win for Sealy in that one. Of course, the old stomping grounds of one Eric Dickerson of SMU and, you know, Rams fame in the NFL, but another long-standing rivalry that maybe not as close as the Battle of the Berg has been historically. Maybe the Jays continue to surprise us. They already upset Columbus. They beat a ranked El Campo team, and now they've got a really good ranked Tigers team coming into town.
Hey, that could be the year. This could be the year for a win for the first one since 2006. So, yeah, it could break that streak, and hopefully they will, you know, because I think Needville's a good team. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're ranked in the top 25 for a reason. They got some good players and some young players, and I think it would be a good season for them to do that. Saturday is a big one, as you mentioned. George Ranch at Foster at a Guy K. Trader Stadium. Once again, the 8th meeting, George Ranch leads that series 4-3. Foster won last year's, though, 31-21. And, you know, that's when Foster kind of turned it around because they were 0-4 going into that one. Well, guess what? They're 0-4 coming into this one. Saturday afternoon. It's a 2 p.m. game. Bring on the heat, baby.
I think this matchup's really interesting for a number of reasons. Obviously, you know, it's a 4-3 rivalry across the first 7 games. It's pretty close. It's about as close as you get in 7 games. Mm-hmm. We love LCISD rivalries. It's an opportunity for the community to kind of match up against itself. But matchup-wise, It's a Foster team that defensively has been really stout against the run, certainly in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's a George Ranch team that if things are going well offensively for George Ranch, they're running the ball well, typically up the middle. We'll see how much of Hayden Drinkard we see on the field. He left the game in the first half, or I should say after the first half against Bryan. So we'll see how this George Ranch running game matches up against this Foster run defense. The other side of that, just kind of mirror it. The Foster run game, that's really the strength of the offense for the Falcons, going up against a run defense for George Ranch that was really, really, really strong against Bryan. They held the Vikings under 100 yards on the ground for the contest. Just that, 196 to 104. Only 27 passing yards allowed against them. But they were really strong in the middle, which is where Foster tries to run. The defensive line was disruptive, plugged lanes, got into the backfield. That game's going to be won and lost in the trenches, and I'm really excited to see how that shakes out.
For Foster, I like to be in that locker room with Coach Hanks and his players this week. I want to see what he says to them. What did he do last year that he could do again and turn that thing around?
And not only that, with them, of course, you don't want to start a year 0-4. The beauty of district play being what it is that you can kind of throw away your non-district stuff if it goes poorly. These players have been here before.
Yep.
They've, like you said, Shane Hank said something to them last year. It clicked. They got themselves into the playoffs. And now it's time for the Bull Creek Cafe Grill and Bar Player of the Week. Bull Creek Mesquite Grill, open since 2012. 918 San Jacinto Street in Rosenberg. Your stop for game day, good taste, and good times. Bull Creek Bar and Grill. And for me, this week, defensively, the stars of the show, I think collectively, the George Ranch defense. They created 5 turnovers, handily won the yards battle against visiting Bryan Vikings, former head coach Ricky Tullos, a big reunion win for the Horns, but specifically, Cade Marino had 2 interceptions in this game. There were 4 picks total. Vance Raval had one at the very end of the game. Josh Oger had one at the beginning, but the 2 in the middle for Marino, I think, really big to keep the Vikings from getting back into the game. A couple of them in plus territory for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. 2 athletic picks. One of them, he broke the route, read it, saw it, broke on it before the ball even left Cooper Murray's hands for the Vikings. Marino's been a good player for the Horns for a couple of years. Had some picks a couple last year. There was one really good pick he had last year against Alif Elsick in the end zone. Helped them win that game a season ago. So a lot to like from a George Ranch defense that played very poorly against Humboldt a week ago. Really, the whole team played poorly, specifically special teams. But a get-right game for the Longhorns, keyed by the defense, and I give the nod to Cade Marino this week.
I got Randle's Tyler Scrappinett. I do because I thought he showed some different things in his play against Marshall last week. One of them was when he was in the pocket. I'm used to seeing Scrappinett, whenever he's rushed especially, he doesn't have much movement, and you kind of wish he'd do more movement, whether it's one way or the other. But in this case, he was surrounded, and he stepped up in the pocket. Yeah. Stepped up and found somebody downfield and threw the ball. I wish he would do that more often because he was successful, just doing that. So, yeah, Tyler, 199 yards and 2 touchdowns, threw the ball very well. He was in the frame of mind where you want to see him be successful. If he's successful, and then when Williams Callis on the other side, those 2 being successful back there, it just makes them a more legitimate team offensively.
One of the clips I saw from that win the other night for Randle, Skrbanek stepping back in the pocket, had pass rush coming off right tackle. He stepped up and threw the ball to Ashton Johnson, who caught it, ran that one for the touchdown, right? Mm-hmm. That, to me, when you're watching, especially a young quarterback, a high school quarterback, maybe a young college quarterback, to see them step up in the face of pressure in the pocket as opposed to seeing something coming from the edge and panic and trying to bail from the pocket, but stepping up to make the throw across the middle of the field, that shows me a quarterback's comfortable. Yeah. That shows me the quarterback pre-snap, new pressure's coming from that side. He's not fazed by it. He's not impacted by it. He's already counted that in, takes 2 steps in, gives himself time to throw, doesn't run, doesn't take a 3-yard gain when he can get a long touchdown to the wide receiver. He knows what he's seeing, he trusts what he's seeing, and he's patient enough to make the throw.
He's still looking. He's still looking, and his feet aren't moving around everywhere.
Yeah.
Where he wants to take off.
Yeah.
Or he wants to do something different other than keep looking for your receivers. Because he's got enough to find one.
Yeah.
They're good enough to get open. He just has to be more patient. I know there's things around him happening, but if he can just kind of keep that in mind and do it more often, he can be more successful.
I know this is not a name that means a lot to people in this area, or means anything to people in this area, but my time in Ohio covering Northwest Ohio sports, I got to cover Patrick Henry football, and they were coached by Bill Inselman, who has been there 3 decades plus. This is a guy who has been there for decades and decades and decades and has won championships, plural. This is a tiny town in Northwest Ohio. Tiny. We're talking population in the hundreds, not thousands, hundreds. And this is a team that has routinely throughout the course of its history gone to the state level and won state championships. Granted, small divisions in Ohio, but champions nonetheless. And he told me, watching a young quarterback, the best way to gauge comfort is to watch his feet. A quarterback is comfortable when he's not panicking, when he's not twitchy with his feet, when his steps look controlled, when they look part of the throwing process. That's when you know your quarterback is seeing the field. It's not even so much him throwing to the right guys, because sometimes open guy's an open guy. You see him, doesn't matter how freaked out you are, you can still get the ball to him. But if you're in the process, if you are under control, he said that tells him more than any box score, than anything else about how comfortable his quarterback is there under center.
We have his answers. We just gave it to him, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So again, 2 really, really outstanding performances. Sean, there's a lot of guys that we could have picked, right? There's a lot of really good performances. Edgar Garcia had a nice night for Lamar Consolidated. Of course, Landon Williams-Callis had 4 touchdowns for the Lions.
Patel
had a bunch
6
of touchdowns. Trey Lewis had a big game catching the ball for full sure.
Just a sophomore.
Hayden Drinker, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards in just 1 half of action for George Ranch. So a lot we had to pick between. A lot to like this week, and really excited to see who shines next week.
So am I. I mean, I'm excited to see how district goes for every team. Just anxious to see how that starts, and it's going to continue on after this week, but the start is important.
All right, so one more time here on the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show, we want to thank you for tuning in to our Week 4 recap. We're excited to dive into a huge Week 5 here next week, but in the meantime, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you think is coming up next week. I want to hear your picks for Randle, Iowa Colony.
I got one more thing.
Yeah.
The tortilla throw at Texas Tech. Apparently, it's not going to get abolished, but there's sanctions been placed on the tortilla throwing.
Preposterous. Yes. It's ridiculous. Oh, my gosh.
For the home team, they're going to get 2 tosses. The opener, and then somewhere else along the game. Otherwise, what's going to happen, first one where they do it and it touches the field, 15 yards. Second one is 15 yards. And then a whole section will be thrown out on the 3rd time. A whole section of people, or not just fans, if that happens.
Why are we taking away things for people to enjoy in Lubbock, of all places, right? What more do Red Raider fans have than tossing the tortillas on a Saturday there? There are things to me that may be weird. It might not be universally accepted all over the place, but that's college football. Yeah. The tortilla toss at Texas Tech is college football, and I don't understand why we are trying to legislate and litigate the fun out of college football.
And you can tell they're mission tortillas. You can tell. I mean, because they're from Sam's. They are. I mean, Sam's got the big packages that they sell. I mean, I would go there if I want to go throw tortillas.
Resident tortilla expert Joel Luna over here can spot the brand of tortillas from a mile away.
Have you ever had a hippo? Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Not yet. I can't say that I have. So that's got to be next on the list to cross off.
Yes.
But again, let us know what you think on the tortilla toss. Or other college traditions like that. What are some other things that other schools have done that they've maybe gotten in trouble for, the NCAA tried to take away from them? I want to hear your thoughts on that. Again, your thoughts on Randle, Iowa Colony, Foster, and George Ranch, and of course the big one, who's going to ring the bell Friday night at Traylor Stadium? We want to know who's going to win the Battle of the Berg. We want you to tell us who you think is going to win the Battle of the Berg in the comment section. So again, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep doing what we're doing here. And we are excited to see you guys at the end of week 5 next week.